Ask Reddit by IC Language 5084. What's the most traumatic thing that you guys have ever went through and how did you cope with it? Not immediately traumatic, but watching my mother become an addict. She went from being my mother to being a violent, narcissistic stranger. The night that sucked the most was the night I gave her $500 of my own paycheck for bills and amp. She turned around and spent it on drugs in front of me, in our front yard, and 2 days later our water and electricity got shut off due to non-payment. Fuck man, that's fucked up. Being in a relationship with a narcissist was horrible. Not only was he emotionally abusive and slapped me once, he was cheating the entire time. What made it worse was that it wasn't a one night stand. He loved this other girl. It just really fucked up my brain, and now I believe everyone is lying all the time because he was so good at convincing me that we had a perfect relationship. None of the things he said were true. I ended up actually developing BPD because of this relationship and tried to take my life later the same year. I'm still coping, but therapy, medication and my family is helping. Stay strong. I sympathize with what being in a toxic relationship can do to you. Can really mess with you and make any sexual desire or intimacy feels wrong in a damaging way. The public ostracizing of your being and the feeling you're all alone and everyone hates you is one of the worst feelings I've ever felt. I never wanted to admit myself to the hospital more in my life because I wholeheartedly wanted to end my life. Counseling and telling my side and having other humans make you feel valid has helped me a lot. Cliché, I know, but I know it's something I'm going to struggle with for a very long time. Don't think I'll ever be able to hold a romantic relationship. Sending lots of love and support your way. I watched a woman burn to death in her van. We tried to get her out. I can still smell it and see her face when she realized she could no longer escape. Rehype. I was raped by my ex-boyfriend and didn't tell anyone for years because of the shame and thought that your partner can't rape you. Ate me up inside for years. Didn't even allow people to touch me. Honestly, I'm still scared about it, but over time it doesn't bother me as much and in fact has been the fuel to my fire. But I still don't like being touched, even by my friends or family. I physically recoil. Deleted. In 2017, I was coming down the ladder from my attic when the entire hatch ripped from the ceiling and collapsed with me on the ladder. I fell onto the metal folding mechanism which went through my left thigh and severed my femoral artery. I was gushing blood and had my wife bring a belt and we got a tourniquet tied around my thigh. I had to get life flighted to the vascular team who saved my life. I had to spend 2 months in the hospital after getting 2 fasciectomies and like 10 other surgeries. I almost bled out. I thought I died a couple of times. Damn bro, that was a good call with the belt and tourniquet. Femoral is bad. Glad you're alive to tell the tale. 1. My parents cheating on each other, the violence, the home insecurity, etc. 2. 2 different long-term GFs developing drinking drug dependency and cheating on me. This cost me mucho $. 3. This will sound ridiculous, but in my early 20s, my rental house was legit haunted. Long story and lots of witnesses. 4. This one didn't really bother me. Witnessed a murder. Dude's head got crushed right in front of me. Gang violence. 5. Same year as the murder, I found, on 2 separate occasions, dead bodies. I dealt with it with the help of my childhood friends and I have a pretty thick skin. I find humor in everything. Damage is done though. I was accused of R8 pay when I was 15 and honestly I coped by going to the psych ward after my brain had a funny moment and went crazy. I was victimized by someone who was close to me. They are now an actual criminal, with a record and indictable offenses. I cope with it by living my best life while they rot. 17 major surgeries, almost died 7 times. My father was absent, my mom was an addict and there was extreme domestic violence around me growing up. I also had to raise my youngest sister while taking care of my mom while she was either high or after she got beat up throughout my childhood. Being too broke to go to the food bank, Rarely having food. Going from women's shelter to home to my grandparents and back. Dealing with CPS, my sister and I almost getting split up. My mom relapsing a few years ago, now she's a mentally ill drug addict. When I was 14 everyone in my family hid the fact my grandfather was dying of cancer in the hospital. Everyone knew but me. I found out 2 weeks before he died. He was the person I was closest to. My entire life has been a shitshow with many near-death experiences and traumatic events. Pick one and tell me how to deal with it. Don't need to pick one. It's always the same answer. Love yourself. You did nothing to deserve this. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. Don't let anyone tell you you aren't worth anything. Dad dying of cancer and my ex at the time was cheating. Shit was fucked. Same. Glad you got through it. My favorite part is that the asshole had the audacity to say I did it because it was a really hard time for me too. I was in a psychiatric ward several years ago. One girl was very sweet but had a horrific history of sexual trauma on top of psychosis. I was sitting next to her while we were doing art therapy, and she turned to look at me and said I love being raped. She went back to drawing right after like nothing happened. Hope she's doing better now. So maybe being raped was the only time she got anything even loosely resembling touch and attention. It's awful if you get these things any social being craves entangled with something as vile as rape. Poor girl. I too hope she's doing better and can tell the two apart and that you can have the good things without having to endure rape. My dad dying. Got closer to my mom and his family. Also lots of grief books and a new job. When I was with my last LDR ex, she was in a dormitory as she was going to high school away from her village. I found out one day she was cheating on me when some guy started messaging me through her account. He told me they were together for 2 weeks, and that she was breaking up with me. I turned into a fucking mess for a month afterwards. Lots of alcohol and crying over not being good enough. Then, she tried to convince me that she never broke up with me, and that it was all a prank by her classmates who tried to break us up, simply because they wanted her to get together with her classmate. We got back together, but I told her that if something threatens the relationship, I'd back out. After 1 more month, I got fed up with her constantly trying to convince me that she didn't cheat on me, and texted the guy. He apologized, and explained everything. And from that entire event, I gained massive trust and self-worth issues. At age 21 my house burned down. Was asleep and my cat kept jumping on the bed to get us awake. Basement was fully engulfed and flames shot up through the heat vents. Went right through the fire to escape with only a nightgown on during winter. I've never gotten over this because I lost so many family heirlooms. I won't live in a house with any kind of open flame. I lost my cat in that fire. He gave you one of his lives. I'm sorry it was his last, but he is glad you are still here. Finding my first wife after she shot herself in the head. I'll never forget washing her brain matter off my hands. As far as coping, lots and lots of substance abuse. Not that I'm suggesting that as a coping mechanism it was super unhealthy. My mum's death last year. I speak to my best friend about it. She's been my rock. Either getting sepsis 14 years ago and being in a coma for 16 days and having 3 mini strokes, or 4 years ago losing my girlfriend to COVID. OMG RIP to her, and God bless you for being such a strong one. My parents hating me for 30 years, from a kid to an adult, because I'm a gay woman. I always thought they'd come around but they never did. It's a deep wound. Growing up with parents that are constantly around but hold you in contempt for what you are, it affects everything. I worked for children's services. Had to quit after 8/9 months because it was so bad that I was losing weight quicker than I could replace my clothes. My hair was falling out. I stopped eating and sleeping, and I was constantly dealing with a full body stress rash and panic attacks multiple times a day. So many terrible memories there. That was back in 2019 and I'm still working on it. I was sad as a kid for many years by a man who got away with it. He was in his 40s and I was 6 years old when I went into foster care and later adopted. I still have the PTSD and anxiety. If it wasn't for my now adopted mom, I never would have made it to adulthood. She got me therapy and resources and she believed me even if the state of California didn't. OMG, I'm so sorry to hear that, G. I saw an episode of Jersey Shore. I'm your poster child for grew up being bullied, hated, and excluded by everyone. Even their family, and the way I coped is not at all. I just couldn't find a good way to KMS. Cancer. It sucks. And all I can really say I did about it was show up to every appointment, not quit when I was the sickest, and not die. Still might die, though, if even one cell got squirrely in there. Do not recommend it. At the start of my teenage years, 12, I had a seizure while on a flight to a vacation. My life spiraled. I was kicked out of the highly gifted program, and it only made it harder. I had no friends going into middle school, but the core 3 I picked up were invaluable. One left me via becoming a negative force in my life. One is a core best friend, and the last one was my first legitimate crush. We ended up awkwardly soft dating, culminating in a very awkward kiss, but I haven't seen her since mid-high school, and haven't talked to her since 2021. High school came, and the seizures got worse. Everything in my life was controlled. Screen time, diet, what I could and couldn't do after school by myself. I only got 1 semester of high school that felt normal, and that's because I was able to go out with friends more regularly, join an after school club, and be myself more. Then COVID hit and it was back.